next morning arrived. 2 holy knights, accompanied by a group of mercenaries, were seen walking toward Alas Ged. Lornius was fortunate to recruit many mercenaries, even though most mercenaries were busy resolving chaos in the northern region. They were assisting the Holy Kingdom of Aqualia to quell barbarian tribes that had suddenly emerged in the north, tribes already attacking villages and causing numerous casualties. The soldiers had gone north alongside Santa, a powerful sorceress, yet the chaos showed no signs of calming. Though resolving such chaos should have been trivial for Bargo, the payment, though substantial, wasn't worth facing Lampier. Still, Welder refused to care about the northern troubles. He was currently on a mission to Alas Ged. Night fell. Curious about evil Wicth, Lornius immediately questioned Bargo. Bargo suspected evil Wicth was Santa's doing, but it turned out to be the work of a heretical sect. Suddenly, Welder interrupted their conversation, refusing to discuss weird nonsense. Instead, they began debating the fundamental teachings of the virtue of God Arlos to relieve stress after duty. Welder did this solely because he wanted to drink alcohol to his heart's content. Bargo wondered why 2 holy knights were sent to Alas Ged, assuming they were investigating evil Wictha's appearance there. But Welder quickly corrected him. The higher-ups wanted to investigate dark elves fleeing into that territory. Hearing this, Bargo felt relieved. If serious trouble arose, Welder would simply order them to run away. But Lornius objected. After all, they were the frontline soldiers of the gods. If evil existed there, they must sacrifice their lives to eradicate it. Welder then reminded Lornius not to seek glory. Though holy knights sometimes did so, they must never make decisions lightly. Moreover, they all had families and deserved the right to refuse death. Welder then invited everyone to drink alcohol together before heading to Alas Ged. Meanwhile, the Dark Elves surrounded Toku and Atu atop an altar, preparing to demonstrate Debus. Toku extended his hand to unleash his magic. Everyone was instantly shocked to see a piece of fruit transform into a grasshopper, meaning Toku could create new life. Atu explained this was merely part of their king's power, and Toku's abilities could go far beyond that. They must dedicate their satisfaction and loyalty to the king, so he might grant them great power in return.
新たに生命を作られたのですか。なんと。
一層の忠義を尽くすのです。このようなものではありません。
Soon after, Atu and Toku celebrated the successful summoning ritual, which had proceeded without problems. Though they didn't fully understand how it worked, they intended to think about it later. They planned to summon 2 powerful creatures to ensure their combat strength. The first creature they intended to summon was Isla, the proud king of insects from the kingdom of Mynoghra, who excelled in battle and could empower other insect monsters, even producing reliable combat troops and enabling local development. Essentially, Toku chose Isla because, unlike other creatures who loved to wreak havoc or conquer the world, Isla aligned with their current focus, internal kingdom affairs. Although they needed powerful beings and wished to meet them, they felt it wasn't yet time to summon Isla. The next morning arrived. Welder's troops were blocked by a giant creature emerging from the hills. Lornius immediately ordered the mercenaries to ready their arrows. But Welder calmly stepped forward, telling them not to interfere in his fight.
んなとこで時間食ってる暇ねえから。
Within seconds, Welder slaughtered the giant with his sacred sword technique, felling it instantly. This technique was a top-secret skill of the Kingdom of Quelia, comparable to a minor dragon's power. Lornius immediately saluted Welder for possessing such a secret art, feeling confident their mission would proceed smoothly without trouble. But one thing Lornius hated was Welder's ever-arrogant attitude.
問題なく解決できるでしょう。どうだかね。
Meanwhile, deep within the dark forest, Atu reminded Toku to eat healthily, not just snack endlessly. But Toku countered, worrying that Atu only ever ate salad, hardly fitting the image of a proper villain. Toku then ordered Atu to summon Molter to discuss the forest now managed by grasshoppers. Toku wanted to strategize which neighboring nation would first discover their existence, a territory belonging to northern Aqualia. Atu assumed it was the neutral Eastern Kingdom and that they needed to plan their response carefully. Toku felt relieved. The neutral alignment meant easier negotiations. But if it wasn't them approaching Toku's territory, things would get complicated, since any other visitor surely harbored ulterior motives, and Atu worried too much. Suddenly, Toku sensed an armed group approaching their forest. He ordered Atu to attempt peaceful engagement, but if that failed, he commanded Atu to slaughter them. It turned out the approaching force was Welder's troops. As Welder and his men neared the forest, Welder suddenly halted them. He sensed someone hiding within. Moments later, Atu emerged, claiming to be a dark elf who'd fled to the forest to live peacefully with his group. The soldiers requested permission to enter and inspect the forest, but Atu refused and ordered them to stop. Welder explained they were merely fulfilling their duty and couldn't return empty-handed. Atu countered that his group, having endured long suffering, had only just found peace and tranquility. Passionately, Welder declared he'd received a divine message. Disaster would strike that land, and he couldn't return without confirming the forest's condition. Lornius and everyone else were shocked. This divine message was a state secret, forbidden to reveal to anyone. Violating it carried punishment even for high-ranking knights. Yet Atu still refused, even if the message came from the gods. His eyes glowed red as he demanded they retreat without being forced. Lornius couldn't believe the aura emanating from Atu, a dark elf. He concluded the divine omen must be true. Something inside that forest would bring catastrophe to humanity. Welder attempted to negotiate again, citing the impending disaster for his people. Atu firmly declared no disaster would occur. Welder demanded Atu swear by the gods. Atu swore, but by his own god. Welder then ordered all his troops to withdraw, accepting Atu's wish for peace as no threat. But Lornius didn't believe Atu's words, even after Welder warned him. They argued again over the foundations of their faith. Suddenly, Lornius seized command from Welder, accusing him of abandoning his duty. Lornius recited all of Welder's failures and took over command to continue the mission into Alasked. Bargo refused Welder's order to retreat. He'd been hired by Lornius. Atu again warned Lornius not to force entry into the forest. But Lornius threatened Atu if he stood in his way, and in an instant, Lornius was knocked unconscious. When he awoke, Lornius was horrified to see his troops hanging like blood-soaked laundry beneath the darkness.
様。
ままならぬものですね。
Witnessing the Adegon, Welder immediately ordered Bargo to send a message to the kingdom. But their messenger had also been killed in Atu's attack. With no escape route left, Welder finally commanded his men to prepare for battle. Yet Atu effortlessly blocked their arrow barrage using his tentacles. Not a single arrow managed to strike him. Atu blamed the entire incident on Lornius's foolishness, forcing them to seek information in the wrong place, ruining what could have been peaceful negotiations. There, Welder revealed to Lornius a long-hidden secret, that the emergence of evil Wicth was foretold to bring catastrophe, as prophesied in Santa's divine message. Even the chaos in the north was caused by the same creature, evil Wicth. Welder ordered his soldiers to retreat from the area, as he and Lornius would face evil Wicth alone. Using the power of their sacred swords, Welder and Lornius slashed away Atu's tentacles until only 2 remained on his body. This shocked Atu. He hadn't expected holy knights to be this formidable. Then, Atu attempted to turn the tide by capturing 2 soldiers as hostages, assuming they wouldn't dare attack if innocent lives were at stake. But unexpectedly, Welder and Lornius calculated the greater loss. They coldly sacrificed the hostages to prevent the prophesied catastrophe. Their ruthless pragmatism left Atu bewildered. He pretended to be frightened, facing the 2 of them, but what happened next? Welder was instantly slain by Atu's tentacles. Lornius couldn't believe his eyes. He'd assumed Atu's tentacles were completely severed, but Atu could regenerate tentacles at will. Lornius now realized they'd been toyed with from the very beginning. He ordered all his remaining soldiers to scatter in every direction, hoping at least one might escape to deliver a warning to the kingdom. This foolishness irritated Atu. When Lornius attacked again, Atu intercepted him and struck back using Welder's own sacred sword technique. Not only had Atu mastered the sacred sword style with ease, he had also stolen all of Welder's memories upon killing him. In other words, the more he killed, the stronger his power became. Atu recited Welder's memories aloud to Lornius, provoking Lornius into vowing to fulfill Welder's final will. But Lornius froze in horror upon hearing the dying cries of his soldiers, slaughtered by dark elves. Not a single one escaped alive. In an instant, Atu suspended Lornius midair, then whispered his possible futures. Had Lornius listened to Welder, he would have returned to his beloved family and lived peacefully with them. And Atu, too, would have remained calm, coexisting peacefully with the forest's inhabitants, closing his eyes, hoping to preserve that tranquility forever. But now, Atu outlined Lornius's chosen future. Lornius would die, and so would his entire family. Atu would hunt them down, torture them until they begged for death, then kill them. Every village and city they had ever visited would be annihilated by Atu, and if anyone asked why, Atu would tell them it was all Lornius's fault for disturbing the Dark King's sanctuary. Atu emphasized, even if they came by the dozens, hundreds, or thousands, no matter how many dared underestimate him, he would slaughter every last one without exception. He declared his utter hatred for those who defined virtue solely by their own beliefs.
聖騎士ローニアス。
Before Atu now lay only a pool of blood, and a single ring resting atop it. No trace of bodies remained at the Odegon. Soon after, a dark elf reported they had exterminated all soldiers as Atu commanded. Gia, curious, asked what Atu meant when he threatened Lornius. But suddenly, Atu switched demeanor, acting cute and claiming he was a peace-loving person.
何かご懸念が。
伝えねばならないことがありまして。
Night fell. Atu discussed the memories he'd absorbed from Welder, including the looming threat of evil Wixth to humanity. Toku found this strange. Evil Wixth had no role in the game world they used to play. Toku now realized this truly was an Isekai world, not a game. Though some game-like systems remained, they needed to start acting immediately. Unlike the game, Atu possessed the ability to steal enemies' powers and memories. In other words, they could learn about the Kingdom of Qualia's situation without sending spies. Atu knew the Kingdom of Aqualia was currently preoccupied with northern conflicts, giving them precious breathing room. Still, Toku remained puzzled by evil Wixth's sudden appearance in the north, which had caused massive military casualties. So much so that this evil Wixth was now named Evil Wixth the Bloodsucker Arikino. Odegon. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a young girl was seen dancing and singing, enjoying her time. Then, she cheerfully commanded her troops to march toward the next city. Back with Toku, Toku reasoned the northern chaos had only recently begun, yet military casualties had piled up astonishingly fast. He suspected those responsible had also been transported to this Isekai, just like them. And if they possessed power comparable to Waira, they'd be extremely troublesome. Judging by their actions, Atu assumed they harbored malicious intent. But neither Atu nor Toku wished to confront them yet, since neither side knew of the other, despite potentially sharing similar goals. Atu felt frustrated by the endless stream of problems, especially since their original plans had been progressing smoothly. Though Toku's initial goal was to create Isla, the existence of someone as powerful as Waira forced them to pivot. Now, Toku and Atu wanted to create Waira themselves. They urgently needed combat troops to strengthen their kingdom's defenses. Looking ahead, Toku even planned to overhaul their political system and form alliances with other nations. Atu assumed the Kingdom of Qualia would inevitably become their enemy, especially with evil Wixth now active in the north. Therefore, Toku wanted to ally with other nations, even if they were evil. As long as mutual benefit existed, they'd likely accept an alliance. But Toku and Atu preferred to ally only with neutral-aligned nations, specifically the eastern region. Toku planned to strengthen his kingdom first, then investigate other nations once their palace was complete, to assess potential cooperation opportunities. Meanwhile, elsewhere, we see a middle-aged woman with a buffalo-like face gripping her magic staff. She's battling a giant-bodied enemy, but she and her allies are suddenly shocked by the appearance of overwhelming enemy reinforcements. Back with Toku, there, Atu confessed. He felt he'd overreacted while fighting the Holy Knights, and feared Toku might be angry at his actions. Tension filled the air for a moment, but unexpectedly, Toku was delighted with Atu's actions, because Toku relied entirely on Atu's strength. Overjoyed, Atu immediately pledged his entire soul and body would be devoted to Toku. Time continued to pass. The inhabitants of the dark forest lived in peace, growing ever more joyful and hardworking. Yet, two young women felt deep regret for still being alive until now. Meanwhile, Atu and Toku happily admired their newly completed palace. Toku dreamed of building an even grander palace, once they resolved all their current troubles. A2, meanwhile, fantasized about a sky palace rooted to the earth, staffed by supremely powerful servants and countless maids. But suddenly, A2 panicked. He remembered that the king still had no personal attendants. A2 immediately asked Toku to describe his ideal servant. Surprisingly, Toku only wanted someone he could chat with because he struggled to communicate with his people. Deep down, Toku longed to be a more approachable people's king. Sadly, that was impossible. His subjects feared his pitch-black appearance. A2 then proposed an idea and asked Toku for time to resolve the issue. Not long after, Gia, Emil, and Mortal arrived, summoned by the king. A2 ordered them to gather young girls by royal command. They were shocked, especially when A2 added that the king particularly liked little girls. Toku, overhearing this, became deeply embarrassed, afraid they'd label him a pedophile. But once properly explained, Mortal burst into laughter. The king was simply seeking innocent, pure-hearted girls to serve him, so he could have someone to talk to, freeing him from being trapped by conventional societal expectations. The trio praised Toku's brilliant thinking. A2 added that this initiative was also meant to create new job opportunities for the unemployed. Although their duties involved daily chores, young girls could certainly handle such basic tasks. Toku further explained these girls would be trained as future cadres, a step toward empowering women to actively contribute to national development. They finally understood Toku's true intentions, though secretly Toku had struggled to invent plausible justifications to convince them. Fortunately, Mortal and Gia praised Toku's genius plan to cultivate future SDE, human resource development. A2 then ordered them to begin immediately, but every child they brought burst into tears upon seeing Toku's pitch-black appearance. This angered A2, he blamed Mortal for poor selection. Soon, Gia reminded them of the twin orphans Mortal had rejected, for being unsuitable as maids. Still, A2 insisted they bring the orphan twins before Toku. Mortal scolded Gia, feeling she'd undermined his authority. Not long after, Kuria and Maria, the twin orphans, stood before Toku. A2 and Toku pitted them. Kuria's body bore dark, patchy scars from past illness, not stretch marks, while Maria suffered trauma. She had eaten her own mother during a famine that devastated the Dark Elves. Their mother sacrificed herself to save their people. Calmly, Maria approached Toku and spoke to him directly. Boldly, she declared she wished to serve King Toku. Toku immediately appointed both Maria and Kuria as high-ranking cadres of Mynoghra. A2 was stunned. King Toku could actually communicate with them. Shortly after, Mortal revealed the twins had never cried since losing their mother. He urged Toku to show them kindness and compassion. Time passed. Maria brought Toku a drink, but clumsily spilled it all over him. This wasn't the first time. A2 was growing frustrated. Yet Toku forgave them instantly, without the slightest anger. Then, A2 invited the twins to attend the upcoming plenary meeting. Soon, A2 opened the meeting with Bismillah and requested Emil's development report. Emil detailed all completed construction projects as previously planned. She also reported leftover materials: wood, nails, stone, sand, rope, and more, all reserved for the next project: affordable healthcare facilities to support public health. Due to SD shortages, Emil also served as head of food resource procurement. She reported that utensils, spoons, forks, plates, bowls, cups, pots, pans, etc., could now be mass-produced using more practical MP magic points. Atu then requested Mortal's report on magical military research. Mortal confirmed the project was complete, though currently only he could activate it, with support from the palace's powerful destruction magic and mana. Atu noted that while destructive magical military techniques were practical, they were unsuitable for diplomacy. He ordered Mortal to proceed with developing the 6 core elemental forces as planned. Toku assumed their military would lean toward orthodox magic to dominate territory. Then, Atu requested Jia's report as head of Mynoghra's warrior corps. Jia announced they had successfully bred 5 new combat grasshoppers. These 5 now scouted uncharted regions of Alas Ged, reaching the empty lands beyond the forest's edge. To maintain secrecy, Jia avoided investigating beyond that boundary. Atu authorized Jia to deploy all combat grasshoppers freely. Then, Atu informed Jia he and Toku would soon summon Waira, the insect king Isla. Mortal was shocked and immediately reported all materials gathered to support the summoning ritual.
全ての虫の女王。あとは魔力次第か。
They passionately discussed plans until Toku ended the meeting, though he remained confused by their working methods. Not long after, Toku entered his private chamber, accompanied by the twins. Suddenly, Maria and Kuria deliberately tore up the meeting's written report. Yet Toku didn't scold them at all, leaving Maria puzzled by his reaction. They asked him, "Are you truly an evil person? If you are, why haven't you killed us?" Toku understood the twins secretly wished to die. They intentionally misbehaved, hoping to earn a death sentence, driven by guilt over their mother's sacrifice. Gently, Toku explained, "Good people must act kindly and are forbidden from doing evil. Evil people, however, are free to do anything, even good deeds. Evil people are selfish, ignoring others' opinions, believing only they are right. Even if shunned by society, they press forward without looking back. That's why I treat you kindly, even though I am, at heart, an evil king." Then Toku mentioned their mother's death. This deepened their regret. They were alive only because of her sacrifice. Softly, Toku told them, "You exist because a mother gave birth to you." Maria and Kuria remembered their mother's final wish, that they keep living. Confused and lost, they didn't know what to do. Toku continued, "Doing evil isn't always wrong. You exist because your mother's love defeated fate itself. What you must do now, live exactly as you please to repay her love. Stay alive. Make your mother proud." Hearing this, Maria and Kuria couldn't hold back their tears, though they hadn't cried even once since their mother's death.
僕は君たちの全てを祝福するよ。好きなように生きるといいよ。
Soon after, Atu arrived to deliver a report to Toku, only to find the twins asleep beside him. Atu had to speak softly and move elsewhere to deliver his full report. He informed Toku the neutral-aligned nation of Forngon was inhabited by humans and mythological creatures. They formed distant regional territories under a parliamentary system led by staff-wielding shamans. They shared culture and ideology, and were easy to diplomatically engage. Toku was puzzled. Why did they build Dragon City so far from their capital? They'd struggle with food supply and security. Atu explained, beneath Dragon City lay dragon veins capable of supplying MP. He wanted to secure Dragon City, currently under attack by hard-to-defeat barbaric goblins and orcs. They received no aid from the capital due to the vast distance. If they fell, refugees would flee to nearby regions seeking protection. Thus, Atu planned to accept those refugees, to boost Toku's kingdom's population. In return, he'd demand they help mine the dragon veins. Therefore, Atu intended to send diplomats to the neutral nation of Forngone.
龍脈血のね。